Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. That's Abdullah. Manchester United beating Sheffield United 2-1 at Bramall Lane. A game that, whilst it wasn't the greatest game of football we've ever seen, we did get over the line in the end. And also, I felt in the second half, Manchester United were good value for our win. I'm just sorry as I'm just saying this, the stats are popping up. And relatively even in terms of shots and shots on target and expected goals. But possession-wise, 63% possession, 37% to Sheffield United. I think we deserve that win personally anyway. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Let us know what you think. Abdullah, how do you sum up that performance? Because at the end of the first half, me and you weren't happy. We were sort of moaning, really, because we just watched what was 45 minutes of pretty poor football. Yeah. But in the second half, United seemed to step up a little bit. Sofian Amrabat, I thought, played very well. Harry Maguire got his Player of the Match award. And obviously, Dalot with an absolute stunner. I mean, it was an all right or was a decent performance in the second half compared to a poor one in the first half for me.
Yeah, no, it was exactly that. I think in the first half, we really struggled to play out through the centre of the pitch. I felt we lacked any sort of penetration from defence into midfield and to attack through the centre, and that was, again, a problem that I always repeat. I felt what changed that in the second half was probably having Amrabat almost dropping in to make it almost a back three. Whether it's in between the two centre-backs or on the outside as the third on the left or right. And with that change happening, I also mentioned how, at the start of the half when we were doing that, it was good, but then we needed someone to be that second line to play in, and I think Eriksen was that guy. And I think even though he didn't do much that was too noticeable for us as fans to see, I felt like what Eriksen actually did quite well was almost just have that player who's just comfortable receiving.
Yeah.
After in that centre, I think McTominay obviously scores the goal, fair play in the first half, and scored the couple against Brentford, but that's where he's currently been effective over the last few years at United since coming in, popping up for big goals and, being a presence in the box, and that doesn't really do much for the way the side's playing. I feel Manchester United really lacked that in the first half. I mean, I was just looking at some of the numbers that we've seen there on screen. Sheffield still outdone us in terms of touches in the opposition's box, so they had more touches in our box than we did in theirs, which isn't a good sign. And I felt that it feels like we're playing our wingers so far from goal compared to last season. I think Marcus Rashford, I know that he played a lot of games at centre forward last season, but this season is almost playing on the touchline. I mean, he had that shot again that sort of went past the post with his left foot. They're the areas that I want to see more of him. So that's more of that's something I noticed in the first half where he's too far from goal again. I've repeated it over the last few weeks. It feels like Højlund as well. Said this before the show started. Too central. I think he's got an effectiveness to his game when he hits the channels and drags defenders wide. I think we have him camped in and around the box way too much for Denmark and Atalanta. We've seen loads of examples, if you've watched him, where he is effective actually dragging defenders wide and pulling out of the box as well. But it feels like we predominantly use him in the centre. He come close with that ball that Rashford put in across goal. He was almost watching it land rather than, getting ready to sort of throw himself at it. So he delayed it a bit. He could have got a goal there. And obviously then he had the opportunity as well. So his link up in a couple of occasions was good as well, and there's still bits of Højlund that I like that look quite promising. That's in terms of the attackers. And again, going back into the midfield, I thought Bruno in the first half wasn't so great, struggled a lot of overhit passes, rushing stuff. Second half a bit better in his link up play, and obviously come close as well, hitting the bar in the first half. Second half as well. I think Amrabat for me was probably the one that stood out for me. I mean, Maguire there's one man of the match as well. Fair play to him. I thought he engaged effectively. Whenever the ball was sort of coming into the forward, he knew whether to, to press them from the back and put a challenge in and whether to let them go. And sometimes over the years, all of us have been quite critical of Maguire sometimes having like a clumsy moment where he, takes the man out or they get around him. And I felt today's decision making of when to engage in defensive situations was really good. And I felt him or Amrabat, I wouldn't have been too mad about winning man of the match, to be fair. Like, thinking of it now.
I thought Amrabat did really well. I probably had him as man of the match, but I'm not going to kick off about Harry Maguire getting it. I thought he did okay.
No, it's fair play, yeah.
I didn't really... it sounds bad. I don't know if this is the sort of wrong way to look at it. I didn't really notice him too much in that second half, and I think that might be like a good thing because he's not really doing anything that's bad. He's just getting on with it. Amo Rao says, not sure if you guys have seen or talked about, but the Telegraph is reporting that Paul Mitchell will become director of football. Yeah, you were just mentioning that, weren't you? Abdullah, also as well, we've mentioned it on the watch along. We did a video about it before as well, but I do want to mention it again. Obviously, today is a very sad day for Manchester United because it was announced at about 4 o'clock this afternoon that Sir Bobby Charlton, arguably United's greatest ever player, passed away. A man that achieved so much in the game and was synonymous with Manchester United and epitomised all that is good about Manchester United, that triumph over tragedy, that excellence that you associate with Manchester United throughout the years, and he was a big part of that. Record-breaking goal scorer, held the record for the most amount of goals for the club for a long time. Obviously, did the same with England as well, won the World Cup, won the European Cup with United just 10 years after Munich, and our thoughts go out to Sir Bobby Charlton's family on this sad day. Just talking of the Paul Mitchell thing, it says here in the Telegraph, I was just looking at it, and it says that basically the former Monaco Red Bull Group and Southampton executive Paul Mitchell is the early front-runner to be appointed sporting director at Manchester United, although doubts persist as to how much power that position will be accorded under the new ownership. The proposed new ownership structure at United will see Jim Ratcliffe take 25% of the club and a place, along with Dave Brailsford, the former cycling chief, on a committee overseeing the football operation. They will be joined by Joel Glazer, the current chairman. So it's a bit confusing as to how this is entirely going to work. It looks like it's going to be a triumvirate, so that's just explained, and then maybe a voting system. But you'd imagine that if Brailsford's Jim Ratcliffe's bloke, he's going to come in and just basically agree with him. So we'll see what happens with that, and also whether Paul Mitchell does become the new director of football. I mean, we need some sort of structure at the club, and there's meant to be a new structure. I imagine that means John Murtagh is going and Paul Mitchell comes in. But as always, we will keep you posted. Ming Hu says, our legend Sir Bobby has just passed. If these idiots didn't show up for the game, I will never forgive them. There's one way of putting it. Callum Tulsi says, Bruno poor today. Wasn't the best game from Bruno Fernandes, was it?
Yeah. First half was very disappointing, in my opinion. I felt he struggled a lot in terms of just rushing certain situations. And I know he got the assist for the McTominay pass, but that assist was a bit rogue as well.
Was a bit rogue when it sort of pinged it at his chest. And McTominay, to be fair to him, did some very good work, controlled it with his chest, and then finished. So, yeah, on paper it's an assist, but I think the sort of the heavy lifting was
the second half was much better from him all around. I mean, to be fair, there was a couple of occasions. There's one where he nicks the ball as well and finds Marcus on the left, and then we sort of end up having that chance for Højlund. So, I mean, the more you look at it, looks at the XG and stuff where it was quite comparable to us in Sheffield, but I actually think we did quite well. We hit the bar with Amrabat and Bruno. We had that Højlund chance, the one where he doesn't actually touch it, where it comes across from Marcus, and then the one where Marcus has a shot, and then he has that. So, the more you think of it, the more obviously we struggled a lot in the first half. And, linking that with Bruno, because it sort of sums it up how the first half we had. And then the second half, obviously, there was a slight tactical switch even before the subs had come on, like I said, with the way we used Amrabat. And then sort of had Eriksen getting subbed on and being used in that phase, that where it goes from Amrabat or the back three into Eriksen, then it gets progressed through the centre. And I felt like we really lacked that central progression, which we have been lacking all season. And that's why I was quite confused at the starting 11. And I did voice my concerns about that at the start of the game, that will be an area where we will struggle. And I felt like we did in the first half. So the learnings from that for Manchester United for me next game, when we're facing City or, we've got Copenhagen midweek, is just don't start with that same 11 with the midfield, because it has to have an Eriksen or a Mount for me there. With the way we played, especially in the second half, you see it. I think McTominay can be used maybe as an impact sub like we did against Brentford, where he can be effective in bringing the ball down in the box and having a clean shot. And we know he's a great finisher, I thought we've seen. But in that midfield, I just can't see a reason to give him that starting role yet, if I'm honest. So, yeah.
No, I agree. What did you make of a couple of people in the chat? Get involved in the chats and the comments, and we'll get into some more thoughts from Abdullah in a minute. D Trainer's been a member of the academy for 2 months. Says, morning from Australia, men. Springboks and United win. Still so scrappy. 16th place and above best is today. The midfield just isn't right. Stefan Horn says, Mainu in, please. Jigsaw O'Toole says, is this where all the negatives hang out? Danny Pett says, Rashford played average. Phil O'Brien says, Ten Hag is history. Adish Ranjan says, is Dalot back soon? Rather have him on the right over Anthony. PBSIAKHT says, personally think Ten Hag is done. His press conference answer says yes. Says to me he's toast. I don't know what that was about. Maybe someone can enlighten me on that one. I'm not really sure. A couple of other people getting involved in the comments around Bruno. What did you make of Andre Onana? Because he'd been coming in for a little bit of stick.
I had a solid game.
Yeah, I thought he did all right today. He made a couple of good saves, cleared his lines when he needed to, and sort of controlled his area quite well. I thought it was one of those games where he just needed that kind of game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no drama. The penalty, no one was saving that, and it obviously wasn't his fault.
Went the right way.
Penalty. He went the right way. He did his best.
Yeah.
And I thought his distribution was okay as well.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of long passes didn't quite come off. Some did. There was no real issue with him. And I feel like he just needed a game like that. That's what I wanted after the Bayern Munich game. The Galatasaray game. I wanted him to have that game against Brentford where he didn't do anything wrong and then he makes a mistake. But today, I thought he did well. I thought it was a 7 out of 10 performance.
Which is what, to be fair, even when they say 7 out of 10, like, again, it's one of them. It's like he anything that came at him, he pretty much dealt with. I think he had that bit of a swerving shot, which he was sort of going the other way. Was it from Brewster when Brewster first come on? So that was the only one that looked like it troubled him a bit. And there was a couple of shots in the first half that I felt like he dealt with quite well. Was okay on the ball, no issues with him. Bruno, again, you said a few people voicing their opinions on him. Like I said, a lot of concerns with me because a lot of it is to do with the way we're playing. I will be honest, because I always say this, and I always get shit for this over the years whenever I've sat here, that I always take away the fact that rather than just focusing purely on the players themselves, more of like, what is the impact of tactics or system that affects player performance? Because it is all easy, because we all agree here that, okay, he didn't have a good game, but there is certain scenarios where when I look at it, like in that first half, a lot of our players were struggling. Amrabat wasn't getting on the ball. He was almost always in front of both the centre-backs, like ahead of him, just asking for the ball, but Sheffield had almost blocked that lane every time. We didn't have any natural, progression through the centre. Once that's changed, it gives almost more breathing space in the second half once we had Amrabat drop in and then we had Eriksen there. And I felt Bruno didn't do anything too amazing in the second half, but I felt like there was a lot more time for him to make a decision once he got it, because the structure of the midfield worked better when McTominay had come off. If I'm honest, I know he scored the goal, fair play to McTominay, but I can't lie, when I'm watching us, we miss a lot on the ball when McTominay's on, and I feel like Mason Mount or Eriksen were always needed in that second half to replace him.
Yeah, what did you make of his in-game management, Erik ten Hag, there? Because we were talking about the substitutions during the game, and you said about they made sense to you at the time. Then he made another change, I think, after that with Marcus, and then he was forced into make a change with Johnny Evans and Raphael Varane. Sometimes I've been quite critical of his in-game management. I don't think it's always worked. I think second half performances under Erik ten Hag as well haven't been great. The first half today was woeful. It was. Second half much better, and I thought he got his subs right. What did you make of him?
I felt the changes were right, spot on. I felt they come at a good time. I felt the second, I was more impressed by, I know everyone's going to be on a negative, so when I say this, people are just going to be kicking off when I say the words even impressed, but I was happier with the fact that we come out in the second half with a better structure, even though we had the same players, and that matters to me more than just changing the players. And I felt when we come out in the second half, there were slight tactical changes that allowed us, like I said, Amrabat to drop into the back three, to progress better through the thirds, and then instantly the changes for me were key. I felt like Højlund was really active physically, trying to hold up the ball and everything, so I sort of understood why he sort of took him off. But But yeah, we'll have to sort of see where we go on from here, because the judgment is going to be on that Copenhagen game, where it's the last lifeline we've got essentially in Champions League football. So, and then you got the derby as well, big games at Old Trafford.
You've got a small matter of the Manchester derby. Then you've got the Copenhagen game, where basically if you don't win that, we're out of the Champions League. Yeah. Then you've got the Manchester derby at Old Trafford, where if you don't turn up for that, you could end up getting battered. So it's all happening, isn't it, in the next sort of 7 or 8 days, whatever it is.
It doesn't stop, mate. Yeah.
It doesn't stop. Yeah. It never stops. With Man United, we're never going to stop. Anyway, listen, we're going to wrap it up there. It was only right we got a win today after the tragic news earlier on. Not a great win, not an impressive performance, but a much better one in the second half. Hopefully, we can build on that and we can take that into Tuesday's game against Copenhagen. We'll be here for that with a watch along. Make sure you're checking out the other videos as well. We're going to be hearing from Andy Tate. We're going to be hearing from Stephen Howson. Abdullah, where can people find you?
AbdulGH_ on Twitter.
Yeah, go and check him out. You know where to find me as well, Jay Moy. This has been a live review. Manchester United getting all 3 points at Bramall Lane. Thanks for watching.